Tech Tuesday number 8, legal disclaimer. Today we're going to talk about head-to-head. And here's an example. You have a startup company, it's called Flushaway, and they develop a product called Flush Toilet. And you finish developing and you're ready to scale. Oops. It looks like you have a competitor called Heads Down, who is at exactly the same stage as you. They have a flush toilet, they're ready to scale. Both of you filed for patents. What do you do? And I'm asking you, what do you do with respect to IP? Yes, you could do other activities as well. Now, this is quite a common situation. You know, a lot of inventions appear when the time is right, either because there's a new technology or because there's a market opening. And I have several right now that just happened recently in exactly this situation. So it's actually quite common. So here's some questions to help figure out what exactly does this head-to-head situation look like. First of all, is the question of blocking. Okay, I'm talking about patents. So is there actual blocking? Does one of your IP block the other product? Is there mutual blocking? You're blocking them, but they're blocking you. Is there perhaps a potential for blocking? Nobody's blocking each other, but you know that you can. So that's one kind of issue you should be looking at. A second one, are you using the same technology? Okay, now a spelling mistake here, but it's easier for you to understand the competitor if both of you are using the same technology, but there's also more chance of cross-blocking, that you have a patent that will block them and they have a patent that will block you. It doesn't matter who's first. Are you currently addressing or are you planning to address the same market? Now, one of the reasons why that's important is because the market, and in particular the niche, suggests additional relevant IP which could be useful. Okay, so if we're talking about flush toilets, there are several different niches, let's say Western countries and Eastern countries. Okay, if each one of you is going for a different country, it's possible that you don't really have a fight. And of course, the most important question is who has priority? Okay, so you have two companies, they both filed patents, but one of you probably filed first. The one who filed first has priority. And the question will then be, which features do you have priority on, and which features don't you have priority on? In cases like this, usually, especially a lot of startup companies are not looking to become big companies, they're looking to be bought out. So suddenly a buyer, let's say Bathroom Makers Inc., appears. They make bathrooms. Okay. Now, there's a few questions you should ask yourself. Obviously, both you and your competitor want to be bought by bathroom makers. Now, if you have a fight, what's going to happen? Well, if you win, then you're going to be the only one to be bought. They have to pay more money for you. But when you fight, you're going to become weaker during the fight because you're wasting your energy on fighting and you're shooting each other. And you're not going to grow because you're going to be too busy fighting. So your value will naturally go down. And perhaps the worst case scenario is that in the fight, you're going to lose so much IP. You're going to file oppositions. They're going to file oppositions. You're going to file revocations. They're going to do third-party filing. And before you know it, neither one of you has valuable IP. And now anybody can compete in this field. So you always have to consider who is your true enemy. I'm sorry, a partner. So that's a buyer. And I don't know if you're familiar with the story of PayPal. There used to be two companies, Confinity and X.com. And it depends whose story you want to believe, but just as the dot-com bubble was bursting, they realized that separately, neither one of them is going to make it, but if they merge, they can make it through the dot-com bubble bursting at the beginning, of 2001. And they formed PayPal, which we still know about today. Now, mentioned before blocking, and I asked, can heads down block flush away, or can flush away block heads down? What's really valuable, though, is to block the buyer. Okay, if you can block the buyer has to buy you. If they buy the other one, you're still blocking them. So, for example, if the buyer has a specific pain and you know how to solve it, is the buyer aware of that pain? Can the competitors answer the pain in the current IP situation? If the answer is no, we need to make sure that the competitors cannot answer the pain of the buyer. As a general rule, a buyer will pay more or is willing to pay more if you solve a pain than if it's just a financial transaction. Okay, so the bottom line about buyers is you don't want your company to become a commodity. If you're a commodity, people pay commodity prices for your company. You don't want that. Now, obviously, in a fight like this, IP is only part of the story. You're probably going to be doing more business activities in order to solve this problem. And the questions that we naturally ask is, can IP help you in these other business activities? And I sketched out an example here. Let's say BMI is looking for somebody high end and they want a short distribution chain and they want to sell a whole bathroom. That's what they're looking for because they make bathrooms, they don't make toilets. Okay, so they're not looking for some cheap guy living in a shed buying a toilet from them. They're looking for a client, that's better word than buyer, who wants to spend a lot of money. It's not a long distribution chain that's divided up, and they want to sell whole bathrooms to them. Now, let's imagine that hotels are sensitive to the cost of water. Let's further imagine that your company has this feature of sensor-based flush volume. Okay, the amount of water that's used flushing uses a sensor to decide it. Well, the business activity will be that you market this feature to hotels and you tell hotels how important it is to save water and you have the feature. And the question we ask ourselves is, what IP can we file in order to prevent heads down from selling a feature like this, features that promotes water saving? And I'll give you another example. There's a boogeyman of communicable diseases and AIDS. And what happened was a lot of places have plastic seat covers, reusable seat covers. In some places, it's considered to be a feature that you can't do without. And of course, it's an important marketing activity in order to convince your potential clients that they really need that feature. So what I'm saying is, whatever your business plan is, you should hope that your IP can walk together with it. Okay. I'm trying to develop a way to chart out what the situation looks like. So bear with me for a second. Here we have a list of features that you have in your flush toilet or could have in your flush toilet. Here's the two companies, heads down and flush away. We're flush away. Red means that the bad guys have a blocking pattern on that feature. Green means that we have. Whitish gray means that nobody has a blocking patent, but somebody could get one. Blue means that there's complete freedom to operate. Let's say it's been known for more than 20 years. Yellow means we don't know if we have a blocking patent or not. And just to distinguish between granted patents and applications, we have this little tilde to tell you that you're pending. So now let's take a look at the two companies. Heads Down has a feature of a hinged seat cover, and so does Flushaway. Heads Down has a patent on the seat cover. Happily, Flushaway has a patent on having a hole in the seat. Okay, but both of us have this feature. So what you see here is that we're blocking each other.
Mhm.
Using a gravity, in other words, you have the water in a tank and it flows down. Using that, we don't know if Heads Down has, but Flushaway doesn't have it. Using direct pressure feed is free. Again, we don't know if Heads Down has it. That's a feature that we have. Adaptive volume control, we have a pending application. We talked about it. We don't know if Heads Down has, we have it. Self-cleaning, Heads Down has, and they also have a pending patent application. Built-in medical sensors, Heads Down has, and we're not clear to us if they have blocking on it. Ventilation is free, and again, we don't know if Heads Down has it. And scent control, you can understand that as you want. We don't know if Heads Down has it. We don't have it, but we have a blocking patent. Entertainment systems, again, we don't know if either one has a blocking patent, and we don't know if Heads Down is doing it. So the purpose of this chart is to help you understand where you're actually standing. And what we can see is that we don't know about a lot of features that the competitor has. We do know that we're blocked and blocking. And we have some places where it is possible that if we got IP, it would further cause problem for the competition. It also helps us understand which niche we should perhaps go into. So it's an open question. What would you do in a situation like this? Okay, and I'm reminding you of the situation. You have a product, you're about to scale, you have a competitor who's also has a product and about to scale. You didn't know about them before, and you're blocking each other. So do you think it's an IP question? I'm not sure what the answer is. It's obviously a business question, and obviously IP will help. So let's talk about IP. What should we do about IP? Well, we should definitely be buying IP, which would block the competitor if we can. If we can, we should consider filing new IP and blocking IP, in particular on version 1 of the product, on version 2, which doesn't exist yet, and on specific niches. We should analyze the buyer to identify what pains they have and whether we can get in that way. We should look out into the ecosystem at various points we might be able to leverage IP in order to control the ecosystem. We should think about defensive plays. We want to stay alive and valuable. So maybe we'll do R&D or buy technologies in order to generate options. Remember, we seem to be blocked over here. This red thing, it's the only place where we're blocked. So maybe if we do some R&D, we can overcome it. Maybe if we do some freedom to operate analysis, we'll figure out it's okay. We can oppose patents, we can ask to revoke patents, we can do third-party filings. But remember, once you start a war, that's what continues. And all sorts of other activities against lawsuits like talking to people on the other side, and so on. Super important consideration. Do you have enough money to handle the legal side? If you're lucky, you do, and they don't. If you're unlucky, you don't, and they do. Now, one of the things that people do in this situation is they ask themselves, is IP actually an issue? Okay, so right now, your sales are zero. Their sales are zero. You can spend, depending on the country, between $100,000 and $2 million on a lawsuit in order to try to get an injunction. But that will take time. During that time, maybe one of the companies will die out of lack of funds, lack of market. So one direction is you can move fast and break things and then outgrow your problems. Say, okay, I'm infringing, that means we have to move faster. I'm going to use a first mover advantage. I'm going to take over the market, and then maybe I'll lose a court case, but as a competitor, they won't exist. If you're thinking about a buyer, so the question isn't whether you're infringing, blocked, or whatever. The question is, what does a buyer care about? Some buyers are super sensitive to infringement, and some are not. So you want to solve that. If you decide to go to war, I'd like to distinguish trench warfare and war of maneuver. Trench warfare, imagine World War I. Okay, everybody's sitting in trenches, shooting at each other for years and years, people dying everywhere. War of maneuver, think about Desert Storm in Iraq. It was over very quickly, everybody was moving around, that's it. War of maneuver is often dependent on secrecy. But you usually have patent publications, people know what you're doing, you've shown in conferences. You also have to ask yourself, like in every war, how do you want the war to end? Do you want the other side to be a partner? Do you want to be a parasite, as in they're going to succeed and you'll just take money from them? Do you want to end it monopoly, winner takes all? Do you want to go separate? Each one of you goes in a separate direction? In any case, if you go for a war of maneuver, you want to think how you're going to apply deception, speed of movement, surprise, and intelligence. You have to know more about what they're doing. If you decide to go for trench warfare, you need firepower, like patents. You need resources, people that can spend their time doing it. You need standing power, that you don't run out of money. And you also want position, meaning you would like to have good blocking patterns and a business setting which is good for you and bad for them. I think if you're a startup company, you want to do a war of maneuver, you don't have the time and energy to do trench warfare. If you're a big company, perhaps it's exactly the opposite. Okay, so here is another challenge. We're not going to talk about it now, we're out of time, but just to get you through it, you have a company called Sandprint, and what you do is you have a drone and it flies over sand and it has a little finger sticking out and it draws on the sand. And you have a competitor called Doonwright. Okay, and you started first, but you were slow, and Doonwright is already selling their product. So now that you finished R&D and somebody's already selling, what are you going to do? And here is simply a mapping of the situation. Non-stick probe, a probe that doesn't stick in the sand. They have a patent. Avionics, to avoid the probe slamming into the ground, you're not flying very close. You have a patent. Avionics, to keep the wind from moving you around and smearing. Nobody has a patent yet. There's freedom to operate on how to plan where you're going to write. Leaning on the probe to rest and reduce battery usage. You have a pending application. Crust saver, I don't know if you know, sand dunes have a crust on them, And if you damage the crust, it has environmental effects on the ecosystem, biological ecosystem. So they have a patent on it. And of course, knowing how long writing on sand, can get blown away. So something that tells you how stable what you're drawing is. You don't know yet if anybody has a blocking patent. They're doing it. They filed something, who knows? Okay. So